Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn. And on today's episode, we have two special guests, Jaime Schehr from XFit Lab, as well as Chris Hinshaw from Aerobic Capacity. We are talking everything Crete Retreat today. That is our latest event in the Power Monkey slate of events. We just got back from Crete, Greece a couple of weeks ago. It was an absolutely epic event, one that we had been trying to put on for the last couple of years, and with COVID and everything, it had been postponed, and we were finally able to pull it off a few weeks ago, and it was everything that we could have imagined and more. We're here to talk about what the event was all about, what was unique about it, what the participants and the coaches had in store, and give you a little bit more insight, because we are intending to host another one of these next summer in June, potentially multiple locations. So hope you guys enjoy this one and get a little bit more insight into what we were doing out in Greece. Well, we have very special guests with us today. We have Chris Hinshaw from Aerobic Capacity and Jaime Schehr with XFit Lab, two of our favorite people that we have with Power Monkey Camp, and recently our first Power Monkey Retreat that we just came back from Greece. But before we get into that and talk about what an amazing experience that was, on social media today, Jaime, we saw you doing something very cool and very special on a rooftop in New York City with some superstar guests. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was all about?
Yeah, absolutely. That was Venus Williams has launched a new line called 11, and it's her line. It's clothes, it's plant-based protein powders, and it gives back to women, and it's just got some good causes behind it. So I was super lucky and excited that I got invited to work out with them on the rooftop of the Soho House, which, if you've ever been, it's just like New York at its finest. It's trendy and it's beautiful and it's fun. You kind of feel like you're in Miami a little bit. So it was really cool. Kira Stokes, who I'm a big fan of, hosted the workout, and I got to work out with Venus and share protein shakes. And it's just one of those pinch me moments where you're like, how does this work? Right? Like, I know all of us on this call have had this conversation where we sort of look inwards and we're like, man, what did we do right to get to call this our work and to get to call this our job? So that was a really awesome moment.
Yeah, it looked amazing. And you're right about like that special New York feeling. Like, you're on this rooftop, you got the Brooklyn Bridge in the background, you got the river there, and you're kind of like just in a zone there that like, this is what New York is all about. And you get to experience that every once in a while. And you're from just north of the city, and you had to go to Brooklyn for this. So that was quite a trek for you to be able to kind of go all the way on the other side of the city for it.
It was like going to like the other side of the country is how it felt, right? I mean, on like school started, there's gridlock traffic, people still aren't taking the train. So it was crazy. But when someone says, hey, do you want to come work out with Venus Williams and led by Kira Stokes for work, you're like, well, yes, of course I want to do that.
Yeah, at the Soho House, nonetheless. Some you don't turn down.
In Dumbo, it was fantastic. I do feel really fortunate to have had that opportunity. Yeah, I traveled all the way to Brooklyn, and it was
worth the trip. Well, from one amazing experience to another, let's get right into our Crete retreat. First one, it was postponed for a couple of years because of COVID-related things, but we were finally able to pull it off. And the one person on this podcast that was not there, unfortunately, was Mr. Chad Vaughn. And I know Chad has some questions about what the experience was like for us. So, Chad, I'll leave it to you to kind of jump in and ask your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Just watching you guys from afar, it looked awesome. And, I purposefully have not asked you anything about it, Dave, because I knew we were going to do this podcast. So I wanted to wait to hear from all of you guys. But I definitely have some questions for each of you to kind of start us off, and then we'll go from there. But for you, Dave, first, I'm going to hand it back to you because I want to ask you where the idea for this retreat came from in the first place, and what would you say is the main purpose of this type of event?
Well, we had been doing a lot of clinics for years, traveling around the world. We had hit up over 25 countries, teaching just thousands of people Power Monkey methods, right? Whether it was me and you, Chad, or different variations of weightlifting and gymnastics combo clinics. And when Sadie and I had Alessia, our first baby, it became a little bit harder to travel as much. So we were trying to come up with concepts to still get in front of people, but to make them a little bit less frequent. Like, we were thinking about the future in terms of how many trips and type of spots that we could actually realistically hit up and still create the same type of atmosphere that we had done prior to children. So we came up with the concept of trying to put together a higher end experience, less times throughout the year, but something that was a little bit more curated, a little bit of a higher end experience. So we were thinking maybe to do these kind of quarterly. And the reason why Crete was selected as the first potential location is because Stella Kamba, who was a former camper of ours, she's been to camp a bunch of times. She's become a big part of Power Monkey. She has her own company, More Life Adventures, that we work with pretty closely, and it was actually a partner for our Crete event. She owns the facility out in Crete that we partnered with. So Sadie and I went out a couple of years ago to go and scout out this location and see whether or not it had all of the little pieces that we needed to be able to feel like it was the right spot. So we did some reconnaissance about 2.5, 3 years ago, and it checked all the boxes. It was absolutely gorgeous location. We were steps from the water, which was just one of the most beautiful, seas you'll ever see in your life. The food was amazing. The villas where we were able to put all the participants was great. And we had a gym that was basically enclosed in our little complex. So everything that we needed was right there. And convenience was one of the main aspects that we wanted to kind of make sure we had available, and everything was at our fingertips. So fortunately, can't talk about this event without mentioning Mike Cerbus, because Mike was an absolute rock star when it came to helping put this together. And he's been living out there for over a year, on and off for over a year with Marie, his wife.
Got stuck there, right?
He got stuck, because of COVID. He was in Europe already, and
poor guy.
Poor guy, right? Not too many people had a better COVID situation than Mike did. Newlywed, being on an island in a beautiful villa. So he went way above and beyond anything we could ask for in terms of getting to know the locals and scouting out locations for us to check out, restaurants and excursions for the participants. And so he was kind of our emissary with boots on the ground to make sure that we had everything set up before we got out there. So a long-winded answer to say that this has been in the works for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for you as well, Dave, that you had to do all that research ahead of time and everything. But you made it work as you always do. Now, Chris, I wanted to ask you, because you've done so many seminars, clinics, whatever you want to call them, through the years of your own with Power Monkey, with other companies in many different types of ways. So how was this different for you from a teaching and coaching perspective from those other events that you've done or that you normally do?
Most of what we do is in bigger groups, and this gave us a really, really good opportunity to almost work one-on-one. It was a unique group of people that it's almost like they were screened to integrate with one another and get along, and build upon each other's personalities. And I felt it was very unique, and it gave me as a coach an opportunity to do things that I could never do any other place. And I mean, things such as running technique, running form, filming people, going back and reviewing it and editing it and providing feedback of taking video and turning it into stills that I've never been able to do at any camp. Because once you start something like that with one person, then you've got to be prepared for everybody else to want to do it. And, if we go to do something like that at Power Monkey in the fall, I mean, it'd be 100 people. It's possible. You couldn't, so you don't talk about it. And this allowed me to talk about the best of the best one-on-one things that I would do with an elite of the elite. But the nice thing was, Chad, this wasn't a bunch of elite athletes. They were just, people looking for fitness, but also the whole premise behind it was a retreat. And that also made it special. It wasn't overwhelming. And so really, as Mike Cerbus, who we can't say enough positive things about, he was very clear about the participants' expectations, and don't overwhelm them because of that. And so what I did is I gave them things that resonated, individually assessed them and provided essentially one-on-one instruction. And that was something I've never been able to do.
That's great. Now, how many days total were you guys there with them, and how much time with each individual would you say you were able to get?
So I had a rough start at the beginning. Somehow
what happened, Chris? What happened?
Oh no. I'm not sure I want to hear this story.
We don't know what the exact reason why it was. We still haven't figured that out, right?
Right. So I was in Zurich the week before. I did a seminar there and then came down I think I flew in on Sunday late, like I got in around 2:00 in the morning on Sunday morning, and hung out most of Monday, and it was nice. Went for a long run, felt good. And I mean, the area where we were, I don't know if there's words to explain how beautiful it was. But that night we went to dinner. It was casual. Ate, just the local food. And then, I woke up at 4 hours roughly after dinner and I felt like watery in my mouth. And I'm like, God, that's the water that you will throw up from. And all of a sudden it was like I ran and I barely made it, barely. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then the first thing I was thinking is this COVID, and I'm like trying to type in, WebMD, and I'm like, I don't think throw up is one of them. And I feel good otherwise. Matter of fact, after I threw up, I felt great. Well, needless to say, that went on through the whole night. And then I spoke with Cerbus and Dave, and Jamie got involved, and she had charcoal pills.
Of course she did.
It put me out for. She had a whole
she was ready to go. She
needs
ready
to come.
For everything.
When I told Heidi that Jamie was there, she was like relieved. But part of the deal was like telling Heidi, this is exactly what happened, and this is how often, and blah blah blah. But yeah, what a rough start. I mean, I spent the first 48 hours kind of in and out of bed. But there again, Mike and his wife, Marie, were incredible. We were in the same house together. Marie was she minds her space. She never went upstairs to where I was, but she always had like a line of beverages, crackers, and different things. And as soon as I would go down and grab one, she'd go to the store and replace it. The two of them were really just rock stars. I mean, not only just in looking after me, but for what they did in terms of the organization of that event, and the structure. It was they were really remarkable. I was very surprised at what they delivered.
Yeah,
above
nice.
and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, and I don't know about you, Jamie, but I felt like I was like a camper. I did.
Yeah.
I was wooed and treated like, I mean, it was just pure luxury the whole time.
Yeah, it was like an ideal vacation. And I don't know that I should say we were on vacation, but it very much felt like vacation.
Right. Yeah. Every day you and I would look at each other and go, we're working. I'm going to go have a cocktail with a guest, and this is working.
Yes. That was kind of what I think we were hoping for, right? To create an environment where, well, I don't know how to put this lightly, but that I tried really hard to make it seem like things were miserable for my wife, who was not
for sure.
And Sadie was not there with us, and seeing us jumping off boats and having spritzes on your roof, Jamie, which was the most ridiculous view you'd ever see in your life. And then trying to convey to Sadie that this was a work trip, and at the same time it was paradise, was a really hard thing to convey. I'm sure it was for you too, Chris, to be able to tell Heidi, like, oh, you couldn't be here, and this is a work trip, but at the same time, it's a vacation.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that there wasn't a lot of coaching and instruction. And so it was really easy to come up with ideas, programming ideas, bringing everybody together. It wasn't like you're scrambling, oh my gosh, I got to do another one. What am I going to do? And come up with something original.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the times, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, one of the times, one of the guests, he wanted to do a rowing workout, but he wanted to compete against me. And so it wasn't hard for me to come up with something that I've done in the past. And we did. And then it resonated with the whole group. And next thing you know, it's like
a 2-day competition.
Yeah. I mean, but that's how it was. It was like a friendly competition. But boy, what a great group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agreed.
So how many days were you guys there with them together?
So everyone arrived on either Monday or Tuesday. the campers and coaches, and they departed on the following Sunday. So really, like, Tuesday was kind of main arrival day for everyone. We had an arrival, a welcome dinner on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday was the first full day of activities. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday were kind of the main days of instruction. Every morning we would have about a 2 to 2.5 hour training session. Actually, it was like 2 hour max. So again, we didn't want to overwhelm them because the middle of the day were activities, going on boats and going on excursions and going to one of the islands close by. And we were doing all these kind of fun things, kind of take advantage of the island. And then at night, kind of build off what Chris was saying, is that it was individual time.
Yeah.
At night, we had the ability to say, hey, who wanted to get private sessions in? Who wants to work on anything kind of individual needs? And then it just always kind of took its own form of, let's get a workout in together. Let's do something challenging, but at the same time, let's work on technique. It was awesome. It was like just very organic in terms of how it all flowed, and it allowed us to work much more closely with the individuals than we'd ever be able to do in a larger group type setting.
Nice. So essentially the length of Power Monkey Camp just set up a little bit differently. And
yeah, it was about 2 days less, overall.
In Greece instead of the backwoods of Tennessee, though I got to say, both very, very beautiful. And I would not want to pass up either one of those. But Jamie, jumping to you now, after, this thing is all said and done, you're back home, it's complete. You went to the retreat and you did what you did. What are you most proud of that went on there or in being a part of this event?
Oh, that's a tough question to limit it to one. It's, the setting is picturesque, and everything that, Mike and Marie had set up on their year-long honeymoon is how I call it. I'm like, they literally had a year-long honeymoon in Crete, which is amazing. Was all part of what made this trip so special. But I think for me, what stands out is the group itself really did, everyone showed up with an intention, right? And the intention was they wanted to work out, they wanted to relax, they wanted to connect, they wanted to have fun. And at its core, that's what Power Monkey is. So for me, this was an extension of why people come to camp and why people come back to camp and what people feel once they've been a part of, drinking the Power Monkey Kool-Aid, if you will. It's like, you can't really describe it until you've experienced it. And Crete was that, times 100. It was a small group. It was an intimate group. They definitely, whether it's the universe that aligned it up or Mike and Dave doing a really good job of vetting the right people, the group itself, and again, could just be sort of who Power Monkey draws in, was just an incredible experience to grow and to learn. If you look at the group that was there, no two people are alike. Everyone has a different profession, a different age range, a different stage in life. Some, retired and doing their own thing. Some just starting careers, some with families, some without. Like, there wasn't a common denominator that every single one of us shared, other than there was this group that wanted to experience something really special together. And coming home, Isiah and I were talking, and I was like, it set up for me an expectation of what is a true and ideal way to vacation, right? You wake up, you work out, you eat an amazing meal, you spend the afternoon doing some sort of incredible excursion, you get another chance to work out, then you have a truly beautiful meal shared in a presence of love, right? Like, we're just laughing and we're telling stories and we're joking. And then you go to sleep and you get to do it all over again. And the ease and the sort of the community that was there is something that made it incredibly special. Akin to what Chris was saying, there was also an opportunity to be more intimate with our coaching and our conversations with people. So one of the things that I do in my practice is I spend an hour face-to-face with my clients, and we talk, and I tell everybody when I'm working with them, I want you to imagine working together is not like a doctor-patient, but it's like two people who are sitting on a couch talking about life and connecting over stress and happiness and fitness and medicine and wellness, because what makes us well and what makes us motivated is feeling good, right? So for me, to have the opportunity to sit individually with each person there in the morning, and it would be 8 or 9 or 10 a.m. and I'd have an hour, just me and some of the campers, well, all of the campers, but one at a time. I got to know people on a really intimate level and to understand why we're all here together. And I think that is unique and really awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, as much as I get out of Power Monkey Camp and enjoy being there and meet all these new people, I can't even imagine it being any deeper than that. That's really cool that, you guys got to experience that, and we'll continue doing the same thing at Power Monkey Camp coming up here in just a week and a half, right?
Yeah.
So we'll all see each other again there. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. But, this being a little bit of a different event, as you guys have been talking about, Chris, you and I have had conversations before just talking about how we're always learning as coaches. And, not all coaches really do that to the extent of we're learning and we're making adjustments to what we're saying. We're changing up the way that we teach things and the things that we do inside of our sessions all the time to try to make them better and to get our points across. Is there anything from this specific setting that you feel like you learned that you're going to be able to take into what you do and what you say in the future?
This was a very unique situation. I mean, I've never been in a situation like this where it was very informal. So, I mean, to give you an example, so like Jamie said, that there was a lot of structure to the day, the way that Mike, we would get an email every day and there was a Google Doc and here's the schedule. This is where the whole plan, and it was all voluntary. So there was this structure, but there was also a lot of like informal moments. So one of the guests, I was in the water, and where we were staying, there was a lot of salt in the ocean. And so you're really buoyant. Matter of fact, you could sit there like you were, in a floaty, but not in a floaty. Like your head would be out of the water and your toes would be out of the water as you're sitting there. It was really something wild. And one of them we were just sitting there out in the water, and temperature of the water was the same as the outside. So there was no chill at all. It was really peaceful. And there we both are for probably 30 plus minutes. And I've never sat down with anyone and not had either I have an agenda or they have an agenda.
Right.
And this was something where, like Jamie was saying, it was more intimate than that. And you got to know them. And you were able to dive into layers that I've never dove that deep before, because there's always a time constraint. You got to see a number of people, you're churning. And so you don't want to like open up, Pandora's box where now they're going to sink into that rabbit hole. But here it was like, we're just talking. And the direction that things went was, it was really like, there was no planning involved in it, and it was authentic. And that to me resonated. I've thought a lot about it since then. And not only benefit to me, but benefit to the guests that were there. And this happened with all the coaches all the time throughout the day. And it wasn't forced. It was just, It was natural. Like Jamie mentioned, and we should talk about it. The dinners that we had that Mike arranged were ridiculous. It was a festival for all of us that was beyond excessive, and whatever you wanted, you got. It was right there. And it was incredible food every single time. And that bonded us together unlike any other place. And I think being captive was important, right? They couldn't go anywhere, but they didn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So essentially you're saying what you learned is you're basically ruined for any other clinic or seminar or event in the future.
Yeah. I mean, there's some value in not having structure, let's just explore.
Yeah.
And that was eye-opening for me. Sometimes you don't need to have an agenda.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
like there was a guest there. His name, so Michael, and he wasn't into really fitness. He was just being a supportive partner. And I had him in my group the first time, and he comes up to me in the very beginning, goes, "Look, I'm here just to be supportive, and I'm gonna kind of move along with the things that you want to do, but I don't want to participate." He was so nervous in the beginning, very, very nervous. And with having a small group like that, I was able to do one-on-one without alienating the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought him, without a doubt, he left a different person because we showed him his potential. And there's a lot of insecurities that all adults have, that we, life just beats us down, and
Mm-hmm.
we become insecure. And he left with soaring confidence, not in the business sense, but in his physical sense, what he was capable of doing. And Mike showed him it from lifting. Dave showed him from, gymnastics and
Mm-hmm.
skills. And I mean, I showed him from the endurance side. I mean, this guy could pace like nobody's business, and he knew it, and he was good at it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Chris. The one thing that I think we always preach, and what we try to strive to with camp, is this idea of care for every individual that we work with. A level of care and a level of kind of enthusiasm, no matter what the person's background is, right? We don't care if you're a games level champion, or if you're someone that has never, run 100 meters before or gotten inverted before. We have the same level of care for every single person we work with. And there were a few people, like you mentioned, that were not really coming to this event because of the fitness. Chris is holding up a picture right now. That's awesome. It's Chris and Michael kind of running on the trails, and Chris doing what he does best.
Right. Look at me. And I am giving him pure attention.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the other four are watching what I'm doing. And
right.
So train the trainer type of an approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dave.
No, it's exactly right. I mean, you pointing those things out is so critical, because, it's one of the things I think we need to get across quite a bit, because sometimes we have a tendency for people to think that Power Monkey events are meant for elite athletes. And they think these are only for people that are going to the games or the best in the world. And it's just not the case. And this was kind of the epitome of that. Like, there were a bunch of people that, like Chris said, were just kind of along for the ride. They wanted to be on a vacation. They thought that Greece would be a good check off the box list in terms of places to see in their lives. And what ended up happening is we kind of exposed people to things that they didn't know they were capable of. And like we said, it was all very informal and up to them. Nothing was forced. You didn't have to participate in this stuff. If you wanted to go and lay by the water, you wanted to go swimming for the day, you wanted to go check out the shops and go eat, you could do that. There were lounge chairs and beautiful reading spots and stuff that you could go do around town. You didn't have to do this stuff. So the fact that they participated, even though fitness was not top tier of importance in terms of their lifestyle, I think it resonated well in terms of what we were trying to get across. They trusted us to be able to pull something out of them that they didn't know was there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Jaime, I wonder, now that you know the setting and you've experienced it, you do it again. Is there anything that you're going to do or say differently to, create a better version of what you're trying to accomplish at the event? Or maybe it was right on. Maybe it was right on. I don't know.
No, it definitely was right on, but I think the answer to that question is that each event is going to take on its own personality. Just like every camp winds up having a different highlight, or like there was something really cool about being able to work so intimately and one-on-one with everybody. And I think that will continue to happen as events like this continue, but each one will have its own special thing, right? Like if you have 3 kids, you don't love one more than the other, but they're all just a little bit different, and there's different strengths and different things that are challenging and amazing. And I don't know that I would change anything, because this was such an awesome experience. I think we grow from it and we learn from it, and the next one will carry with it all of the incredible opportunities that this one had. But different groups of people will bring a different element, right? And I've had the opportunity to, even after Crete, even though it was not that far back, meet with some of these individuals and meet with some of the campers individually. And we're all still riding this same high of like, what an incredible experience as a human to be able to go deep with strangers and come out of that feeling like a family, right? Like at any given moment in that retreat, you could look to the side of the dinner table and feel like you were at the wedding of somebody that you've known your whole life, because that's the sort of celebration that it created. And so I don't know that I would do anything differently. I think the dynamic for every experience will change, but I do think that there's something really, from my perspective, and this is purely just my observation, something really cool happening with Power Monkey as a whole, which is, when I first joined camp and came to work with you guys, I don't actually know how many years ago, Dave, we were trying to figure it out. It's like,
yeah, it was like
6
years ago. Yeah.
It has to be at least 5, because I was living in a different house than I am now. So I know that. But, to watch it grow from 5 years ago to where it is now, it has grown into a space that continues to hold this special ability to learn from the best and to be a part of camp. But it's not just about CrossFit, and it's not just about games athletes. And I think it's grown from that. And that's still a big part of Power Monkey. But I've sent clients to Power Monkey that have never CrossFitted in their life. And now we have Restored coming next week, which is a totally different branch of camp that is the same magic of Power Monkey, but aiming at a different person. And I think what we can see, and sort of the analogy that I'm making here, is that every time you do something, you learn from the previous experience, right? So this experience with Crete was incredible. And I think it will continue to be incredible, as camp is, but we'll learn and we'll grow from it. And I think that's sort of a representation of what Power Monkey is as a whole. It's people who are not just campers, like even the coaches. Every year that I go back, it's like there's coaches who are doing something better in their life, growing, learning, changing. Like it's just that aspect of learning. We don't just teach, we learn alongside the people that we're teaching. And that's really important.
Absolutely. Love it. Now, Dave, kind of the same question for you, but more specifically, in kind of putting everything together for this event, or just with your sessions and your coaching in general, what was the greatest challenge for you? We've talked about how good everything was, how beautiful it is and everything else, but what was a challenge for you?
Well, I think there's always an added challenge in my situation, being that I'm coaching, but I'm also trying to help oversee the event. And so I kind of am playing host along with being coach. So same with camp. I've kind of feel like I've gotten a good handle of how to manage those two roles through camp over the last almost 9 years now. But same with this type of event. Fortunately, Mike kind of took the reins and took a lot of that hosting role out of my hands for this particular event. But my goal is not only to always make sure that people learn a little bit throughout the week, but also to make sure that the days that they spend with us are the best days of their year. And whether or not that happens is irrelevant. My goal is to try to make that happen in any way that we possibly can. So from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, we want to try to make sure that everything is kind of taken care of, that they feel like, today was better than the last day. And so that's what I'm always trying to strive for, not only with the participants, but also with the coaches. And so I'm kind of putting this balance of saying, what can we do to make sure that the coaches still want to be partaking in this moving forward, and clamoring to continue to want to be part of the team, and that it's not a chore for them, but something that they look forward to. So for me, that's a really big part of what I have on my plate all the time. What can we do to make sure that the coaches continue to want to be part of Power Monkey, whether that's at a camp, a retreat, Restore, whatever else that we're putting on, because they want to be part of the team and they want to be part of the events that we put on, as opposed to just coming because it's a small paycheck in their pocket.
But you were, Dave, way more mellow.
Yeah.
Because I think that because of Cerbus doing essentially what you have done.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I really looked at you this time differently. I looked at you as a coach, and you didn't have all that pressure of the structure, right? Because Cerbus was saying, dinner is at this time. We're going to pick you up at this time. The car's meeting you here. He did all the reminding. If people needed laundry, if they needed something picked up, if they needed taxi service, you just coached. And it was nice to watch you do that.
Yeah, it was a big change for me, to be honest. And it took this long to let go of the reins a little bit,
That's
to trust someone else with your baby, to be able to say,
we're having a breakthrough moment. Because your shrink for 10 years couldn't get that out of you.
Well, Jamie's been that role for me for many times too, and saying, Dave, you got to let go of some
Everybody's
stuff.
And it was Jamie, and it was perfect. Cerbus, home run.
Yeah, totally.
Home run.
Can we also talk about Dave's amazing dinner on that final night? I mean, I know we can't replicate that at camp for 100 people, but Chad, I gotta say, one of the highlights of this trip was that when all was said and done, and Dave could even relax even more, even though he was relaxed the whole week, we got to experience the culinary side of Dave Durante.
Okay.
Yes.
So what?
Now,
so Chad, the backstory of that is that one of the guests, he says to me, and Dave happens to listen. He says, "I need pasta every Sunday. I have pasta, and I need to, like, this Sunday. Can we just have some pasta?" Because we were always having, fresh fish. It was always fish and the lamb from Crete. And of course, Dave's like, I could whip something up. And next thing you know, we're heading off to the store.
Yeah, Jamie and Chris came to the store with me, helped me pick up all the ingredients. And the guest who asked is also an Italian American from New Jersey. So if someone like that, who's right up my alley in terms of backgrounds, asks for some pasta on a Sunday, which is something we do every Sunday in my house as well, I was not going to turn that down. You know what I mean?
There you go. Now, please tell me that Dave had an apron on during this time.
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, wow. And the food turned out okay? And you didn't have an apron on?
He cooked it all day. He cooked from noon until 7.
Yeah, Jamie was a huge help in the kitchen, helping me get everything.
Nice.
Sous chef and therapist at the same time.
Rice, some vegetables.
All right, so we're gonna put both of you in the kitchen with Katie then.
I would love that. I would love that. That would be my second role if I ever had the ability to to get away from the gym at camp. I would love being in the kitchen with her. But yeah, we made some pasta. We made some other stuffed peppers and roasted veggies and stuff, and we ended camp on a good note with the rest of the crew that was there. It was about 12 people at dinner that night, and I think we ended camp really well.
But Chad, think about it this way: like camp here in Tennessee, you have a window to show up for dinner, and there's this window, and people come in at all different times within their window. There was a hard start to dinner, and it was always interesting to me. And that Sunday night, it was like everybody was there on time because they didn't want to miss out. It was that good.
Yeah, for sure. We just gathered around.
Yeah, it was like family. It was like a family dinner. Like, and that's the thing that I'm always shocked about, and that I found to be special about this event. I bring up a lot what happened at the end of Power Monkey Camp 1. At the end of that first camp, people were getting on the bus to go back home, and people were crying, and they were crying to leave after a week of living in cabins together. And I was shocked. I was like, I can't believe people got to know each other this closely in 1 week, and that they're leaving, and that they're so emotional about the people that they didn't know 5 days prior. And that to me, I was like, oh my God, maybe something is here more than just the information that we have throughout the week. I was like, maybe Power Monkey Camp has some legs to it. And same thing happened in Crete. And the same thing happened in terms of people that we had a 4 or 5 day experience. We have a text chain going with the people that participated now, and we are constantly talking to each other. We got invited to one of the couple's weddings that we all seem to want to go to. That's coming up in 2022.
I'm going.
Yeah, we are too.
We're going. Yeah, I'm not missing that.
Theme to wants to.
I don't want to speak for you guys.
I will be there.
and we already have the next retreat kind of aligned with that wedding. So like everybody, nice. Almost the whole crew is coming back to Crete next year. We have one spot left, and we're potentially going to open up a second week if this one sells out. And everyone's going to go from Crete to this couple's wedding the following week. It's like, I'm shocked at how close people can come who are like-minded, who are open to experiencing where people are from that might be different, and just be able to get that close in such a short period of time. And Crete really did that in a new way.
But Dave, I actually think that's what you've built from the ground up as a company. I mean,
I agree.
To anybody listening, listen, most people listening are not going to have the opportunity to come to Crete. First of all, you said there's only one spot left. So now there's definitely not an opportunity
Right.
for everyone to come. But I think what we can take from it is we're sitting here talking about this amazing experience, and it really was special. And it made every single one of us as coaches, as humans, as leaders, even more aware of the space that we take up in environments like this. But I think to people who are listening, it's a nod to what happens when you put a group of people together who are not all from the same background. They're not all with the exact same life and trajectories, but they're all there with a common desire to be better, right? And one of my favorite sayings, and this is what I teach to my girls every day, I say to them every single day, I say, no matter what you do today, be a better human. Be a good human, right? And there's something that's built in the matrix of Power Monkey. Why did people cry after the first camp? Because when you're there, you're experiencing a true sense of connection. And in the world that we live in today, it is very hard to connect to people. It's hard because of work and schedules. It's hard because of social media. It's hard because of technology. It's hard because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But when you put people together with an opportunity to connect, it creates a sense of belonging. And I think ultimately that's what we as humans thrive on. So to that, I say Crete was incredible. It was amazing. I pinch myself that I'm even lucky enough to have had an opportunity to be a part of this and continue to be a part of it. But really, if you're listening, you're getting insight into what happens when you're just part of the Power Monkey family and what happens at camp.
But weren't you surprised about the level of connection that I understand, and I could see how there's a connection from the guests towards the coaches. But the coaches feel the same way about the guests. I mean, and that is what's a surprise for me.
Well, I think that goes back to, we weren't just teacher student. We were, coach and athlete, but we were learning from each other. I learned so much from every single person there. So instead of being, we're not just there to give them, but they gave to us as well. And I think that's a unique situation.
And I agree with you. And that's why, because in a roundabout way, they were coaching us.
Well, I think for me, I'll tell you that Power Monkey Camp that's what that has done for me through the years, is more and more, it's less about me being there as a teacher and coach. Yes, I'm always going to do that. And there's going to be, some sort of praise for that, or, hey, good job, or whatever that is. But it's more, for me, more about just being there with other human beings and getting to know them and learning from them, as you guys mentioned. So, the fact that you guys got to experience this on a different level at this retreat is awesome. And I'm excited to hear that. And it's motivation for me and inspiring to me and getting me to look forward to camp more and more that's coming up. I'm so glad that it's already here, and I'll be heading that way in just about a week to be able to experience that again, because it's something that I miss through the year, all year. I look forward to camp for that very reason, to grow and to be that different person that is just there in this environment, to be a part of this group of people, and less about being the teacher and the coach and the one that's doing the good job. You know what I'm saying? But, we've talked about this retreat and Power Monkey Camp, Power Monkey in general, just in general, and how good it was and everything else. But I want to kind of end this, unless Dave has anything else, with going around to each of you one time and just giving us, the most memorable moment for you, whether that be just a conversation you had with one of the guests or anything that happened that you can say was the most memorable moment for you. And Chris, we'll start with you.
So maybe, I don't know, a mile offshore, there's an island, and it used to be a leper colony. And it's a historical site, and it's well preserved. I mean, it's really amazing what you actually can see on this island. And so one of the excursions that we had is we all jumped in a boat and we went to this island and explored. And it was really, that surprised me. Normally in the past, I would never do something like that. I would just stay back and do my own thing. But I decided to jump into it, and it was an incredible excursion. We kind of split up as groups and went, paired up, and then we got back together again. But what surprised me is how much I enjoyed it as an individual. And it makes me realize that, for me as an individual, those are things that I shouldn't just sit back and not do. I have a tendency to like fewer people and be by myself and quiet time, but it made me realize, like, you know what, let's just get out there and do these things and explore and find out, a little bit more about these people. And that was a huge positive for me, a huge positive. Yeah.
Well, you're more like me than I thought, Chris.
Oh, well, yeah. What's funny is like Heidi, she would ask, why aren't you in these pictures? I'm like, I didn't go there. Why aren't you in that one? I didn't go to that either. Why aren't you over here? I'm like, sick. It's like, there's always these reasons why I'm not there. I need to participate more. And mostly because at times it's out of my comfort zone.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's where it was like, you know what, I'm going to go down and sit on a lounge chair and sit in the sun, which I don't want to do it, but I'll tell you what, you give me a couple palomas and I'll sit there all afternoon.
I hear you on that for sure. All right, Jamie, now to you. What was your most memorable moment?
It's like so hard to pick one, but there was a moment where we had taken a boat trip we'd taken a few boat trips, but this particular boat trip, we took it to the middle of this beautiful water, and everybody just got out and jumped in. And some people were stronger swimmers and some people were not as strong swimmers, and they were very funny moments. But at one point in the boat trip, we're all sitting on a rock. We swam over to, I have no idea the distance. I'm not even going to pretend I could guess what it is. But we all swam, which felt like a very far distance to me, and then climbed up these rocks, which were not smooth and soft. And everybody found a position on like a sharp rock on an edge of a cliff. Like, it wasn't like sitting on a soft hill. But by the time everybody jumped the boat and swam over, and at one point I just turn around and I look, and I'm sitting on the side of a mountain in Greece. And it's not a mountain it wasn't part of a land that people live. So it was just like a terrain. And the entire group was just sitting on different spots. And we're all looking out onto this incredible water. Some people in conversation, some people just sitting there admiring the view. And I literally looked around and I thought to myself, I'm in one of the most beautiful places in the world with a handful of people who are just incredible humans. And I couldn't be more grateful in that moment to just be present, to just be there, to not have an agenda. Chris, I'm not entirely unlike you. I'm very much an introvert. And I'm married to an extrovert. So that's always a challenge, right? But it was a moment where I just sat there and literally looked around, and I was like, there's no other place to be than right here, right now. And everybody was in that same space. And it was really, really, really special. That for me, it was the sum of the whole trip, because that moment really is the definition of what the entire week felt like.
Nice. And it sounds like it was so special that it didn't matter that you were one of those not so good swimmers. Is that correct?
Yeah, I literally looked at the boat and I was like, well, mind you, if you guys follow the Instagram of Power Monkey, please tell me you did not miss Mike Cerbus's epic jump off the boat, because
we put it up like 3 or 4 times.
It's not a better moment.
Oh, I'll have to go check that out. I didn't see it.
You didn't see it, Chad?
No.
Oh, my God.
Oh gosh, it's postcard worthy for sure. But I just like it was sort of like that moment where I'm like, do I want to jump in and swim that far? And to what you were saying, Chris, like, you just sort of have to get out of your own way sometimes, right? And I had to just be like, well, yeah, I want to sit on the rock, so yeah, I got to jump in the water and swim. And I'm a fine swimmer. I just was in my own head, but nonetheless, it was really incredible.
I mean, but how about your accommodations and where your bedroom was relative to the water? What it was
my bedroom was in the water.
It was maybe 2 meters from the water, maybe.
Basically, every morning the water just splashed up against the bedroom wall. I can't describe to people. I would put my head out the window, and beneath me would be everybody, all the campers, attendees, like just women, and my bedroom was in the water. I don't think you could describe it any other way.
It was the best.
Nice. Yeah. Well, let's be sure to put the link to Cerbus's video in the show notes. We got to do that for sure. It sounds like
we have it everywhere. It's tremendous. He slipped. He was in a Speedo. He had his hair in a bun. It was just all of the things.
Speedo and bun. Okay. Yeah. I can't believe I'm probably the only person that hasn't seen this. I can't believe it.
You're the only person that really needs to see it.
He fell. He went to do like a beautiful dive and slipped. So he's in like the most awkward of. I mean, I can't laugh if I think about it.
So we're gonna put this on the big screen at camp a couple times as well, for sure. So
absolutely.
It should loop.
Replay. Yeah, I like it. All right, Dave, how about yourself? What was it for you?
Again, similar to both of those guys, there's like so many, but you could do a whole podcast just saying one great memory after another. But for me, it was 2 specific moments. I'll narrow it down to 2. One, when we had our arrival welcome drinks on Jamie's rooftop. And that was the first one. We had like some champagne and spritzes and some Negronis on the roof when the campers arrived that first night as the sun was setting before we went to our first dinner. And it was the first time that we got all the campers together for the event. And after 2-3 years of trying to make this work and finally getting onto that rooftop and having that first drink with everyone and saying like, yes, this is finally happening. It was just a huge sigh of relief and just, again, being grateful that we were able to pull it off. And that was like the first exhale of saying, all right, everybody's here. Let's now enjoy the week.
Well, and first of all, I don't approve of that because I don't hear that there was any beer there. So I'm not sure.
There was no Shiner in Crete, unfortunately. Okay. So we had to do what we had available. But we did have some good Crete beers that were presented to us. Mike again went out of his way to like figure out what the locals would find to be worthy of us to have, and there were a bunch of Greek beers that we kind of had throughout the week. So we might have to kind of get you out there and have you test out some Greek beers.
When I was in Athens in 2004, some of the best beer I've ever drank, and I drank a lot of it while I was there after I lifted. So,
well, there's some more that you'll have to test out in Crete when you get you out there. But the second one was actually the final meal, not the one that Jamie mentioned, but really the one that capped off the week. We did it at one of the neighboring towns, Ios Nicholas, that looked out over this bay. We were on the top of the hill. It was the closing ceremony dinner, essentially, and it was the final exhale of saying we pulled off another great event. And everyone had an incredible time. The campers were leaving the following morning. And for me, that closing meal at camp and that closing day at camp is always a huge relief for me to be able to say we did another great event where people are going home happy. And for me to be able to get home, to get everyone off and at the end of that week and say, hey, we're leaving with one of the best experience of our lives and excited about coming to the next one. For us to be able to have a great start and a great end was really special for me. And yeah, it's one of the memories that I have of leaving that, looking out over onto that bay, having another great meal that Mike had set up for us.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure to hear about this retreat. And again, it makes me look forward to seeing you guys and being at camp here just in the next couple of weeks. Dave, do you have any other closing remarks that you want to throw out there?
Sure. Last thing, the next one is going to be the 3rd week in June. We do have one spot left over. If people are interested, we will be opening up a second week, but it will be happening in June, end of June 2022. So check out Power Monkey, PowerMonkeyCamp.com, PowerMonkeyFitness.com. You'll see all the information there. I just want to reiterate one quick thing that Jamie mentioned, that Chris has mentioned, that we talk about a lot before we get out here, and it's the importance of community. It's one of the things I think we do best with Power Monkey, and it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, the community that we've built. Growing up, I always loved the community that I was out in my town in New Jersey. You know, we had a lot of block parties, and we knew all of our neighbors. We shared keys to each other's houses, and we always knew that the community in our town was there if we ever needed anything. And I think as we've grown up in the world that we live in today, we've lost that sense of community in a lot of ways. I'm fully, aware that I've done the same thing. I don't know my neighbors nearly as well as I did when I was growing up where I live now. and we're always running around. We live more on social media than we do in real life. And Power Monkey has allowed us to create a sense of community that I feel is missing from most people's lives today. And it's one of the things that I think would allow us to live more rich lives. And if you haven't been to camp, if you haven't been to an event with us, understand that that's one of the things that's a priority for us, to create a community where you feel included, no matter what your background is, no matter what your fitness level is. We want you to feel included. And really, that's I think the heart of what Power Monkey is. And we saw that at its finest in Crete.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I was going to end it there, but I'm just sitting here thinking I love listening to Jamie and Chris speak so much, and I don't want to end with Dave's voice in my ear. So Jamie, do you have any closing remarks before we get off here?
Oh man. I'm going to back up to what Dave said, just to, thank you, Chad. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to everybody for, creating Power Monkey, which has become such a space for friendship and community. I mean, we're all going to be at the wedding of a Power Monkey couple in just a few weeks. Like, there's just example after example after example of ways that this company or brand has created something that revolves around community and the importance of it. And so I'm very grateful for that. And if you are listening and you've never come to camp, I don't think we could convince you more.
Yeah, for sure. And Chris, along with your closing remarks, anything you got coming up you want folks to know about or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I think that building off of what we've said, the sense of community, but what Dave has built with Power Monkey, it's this cohesiveness with all the coaches. The fact that we know each other's material, we're confident in one another and their ability to deliver seamlessly and equivalent to what everybody else is doing. So one other coach isn't doing something that's more technical than the other. We all adjust towards the group that we're speaking to. Mm-hmm. And that's because we've spent years working with one another side by side. And I think that that's really what creates this, is that all of us, I mean, the four of us, we're all on the same page. So when a group comes in, we're all assessing that group equally, and we all know what the other one's going to be doing. And a perfect example of that, Chad, was on the last, 2 days, Dave and I partnered up. Mm-hmm. We never once ever got together before that class. We just showed up that morning, mm-hmm. and we filled 2 hours, and it was flawless. It was smoking good.
So we had a home run with those.
It was a home run. But we didn't sit down and collaborate beforehand. That's what Dave has created. We know each other that well. And so I think that is rare. It's unique. It takes time. I mean, I don't know how many Power Monkeys I've done, but at least 10, 12.
12.
12. Yeah. There you go. And so it takes years of working side by side and understanding the personality, the behavior, and also the knowledge and experience. And that's why it's seamless. It works.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a minute. I think at this point, it's better if we don't set together ahead of time and plan things out. We just need to, we know our stuff. We know each other so well. We just need to make it happen. Well, guys, like I said, thank you both so much for joining us, and look forward to having you back on the podcast again at some point. I know that we will. I think this is the third or fourth appearance for each of you guys already. But like I said, look forward to seeing you guys at camp in just a few weeks as well, or a week and a half as well. So to our listeners out there, as Dave said, be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, as always, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your hosts. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.